फितरत नवा पर पै बपै मजबूर करती है। अभी महफिल में है शायद कोई दर्द आशना बाकी, दिलों में वलवले आफाक कीरी के नहीं उठते, निगाहों में अगर पैदा न हो अंदाज आफाकी।
नहमदुहु व नुसल्ली अला रसूलिहिल करीम व आलिहित ताहिरीन। अम्मा बाद फ़ाऊज़ु बिल्लाहि मिनश शैतानिर रजीम। बिस्मिल्लाहिर रहमानिर रहीम। अल्हम्दुलिल्लाहि रब्बिल आलमीन। अस्सलातु वस्सलामु अला सय्यिदिल अंबिया वल मुरसलीन व खातमिन नबिय्यीन अबिल क़ासिम मुहम्मद। अल्लाहुम्मा सल्लि अला मुहम्मद व आलि मुहम्मद व अज्जिल फ़रजहुम व आलिहित तय्यबीन अत्ताहिरीन अल-मुंतजिबीन अल-मासूमीन अल-मज़लूमीन अल्लज़ीना अज़हबल्लाहु अन्हुमुर रिज्सा व तह्हरहुम तत्हीरा। अल्लाहुम्मा सल्लि अला मुहम्मद व आलि मुहम्मद व अज्जिल फ़रजहुम व लअनतुल्लाहि अला आदाइहिम अजमईन मिन यौमि हाज़ा इला यौमिद्दीन। अम्मा बाद फ़क़द क़ालल्लाहु सुब्हानहु व तआला फ़ी क़ुरआनिहिल मजीद व फ़ुरक़ानिहिल हमीद। औज़ु बिल्लाहि मिनश शैतानिर रजीम। बिस्मिल्लाहिर रहमानिर रहीम। वल अस्र इन्नल इंसाना लफ़ी खुस्र इल्लल्लज़ीना आमनू व अमिलुस्सॉलिहाति व तवासौ बिल हक़्क़ि व तवासौ बिस्सब्र। सदक़ल्लाहुल अलीयुल अज़ीम व सदक़ रसूलिहिन नबिय्युल करीम। In the name of Allah, the most beneficent, the merciful. I swear by the time man is indeed in a state of loss, except for those who believed and did righteous good deeds, and exhorted each other to follow the truth, and exhorted each other to observe patience. Sadaqallahul Aliyyul Azim wa sadaqa Rasulihin Nabiyyul Kareem. Salawat Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad wa ajil farajhum. First and foremost, a very big assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. And today, this salam is not only from my side, but also, as you have already heard, also the side of
Muhammad Hassan Umar Chaudhry.
Okay, so who is also joining me today, as usual, my co-pilot who joins me nearly every time nowadays, you can say. But before we begin any further with what Hasnan has prepared for us, what I have prepared for you, let's start as we always do and pay a word of honor into the most honored one, the awaited, the sacred Noor of Sayyidah Kainat, Noor Rasool, Farzande Batul, Imam Zamana, Ajralallahu Ta'ala Farajhum. And he, Ajralallahu Ta'ala Farajhum, has said, rest assured that no one has a special relationship with Allah. Whosoever denies me is not my follower. The appearance of the relief of Al-Faraj depends solely upon Allah Almighty. Therefore, those who propose a certain time for my appearance are liars. As to the benefit of my existence in occultation, in ghaibat, it is like the benefit of the sun behind the clouds where the eyes do not see. Indeed, my existence is an amnesty for the people of the earth. Therefore, pray much to Allah to hasten the relief, for therein also lies the release from all your sufferings. Now I request everyone watching at home, and of course Hasnan, you as well, to raise your hands and join me in the recitation of Dua Faraj. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad wa ajil farajhum. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Allahumma kulli waliyaka al-Hujjat ibn al-Hasan salawatuka alayhi wa ala abai fi hazihi as-sa'ati wa fi kulli sa'a وليا وحافظا وقائدا وناصرا ودليلا وعينا حتى تسكنه أرضك طوعا وتمتعه فيها طويلا برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. اللهم صل على محمد وعلى محمد وعجل فرجهم. O Allah, for your vicegerent, the proof, the son of Al-Hasan, send your blessings on him and on his forefathers in this hour and in every hour. Be for him a guardian, a protector, a leader, a helper, a proof and an eye, until you make him live on the earth in obedience to you, and allow him to live therein for a long time. With your mercy, O most merciful of the merciful. Ilahi Ameen. Salawat Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad wa ajil farjahum. Of course, that isn't the end of the du'as which we have to present today into the court of Allah Almighty. In fact, another du'a which is now a firm regular part of our show. First it was a sort of regular part because we just introduced it, but now it's been happening for quite a while, so I'm sure you're used to it. It's recitation of Dua Hifz Iman. So I request Hasnain to recite that for us, and of course that also means that I request you at home to raise your hands and join in. If you do know it, if you don't, then you can always repeat or just listen to it, and I will also join in, of course. So after salawat, Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad wa ajil farjahum.
Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. رضيت بالله ربا وبالإسلام دينا وبمحمد صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم نبيا وبعلي إماما وبالحسن والحسين سيد شباب أهل الجنة وعلي ومحمد وجعفر وموسى وعلي ومحمد وعلي والحسن والخلف الصالح عليهم السلام أئمة وسادة وقادة بهم أطوى الله ومن أعدائهم أتبرأ. اللهم صل على محمد وعلى محمد وعجل فرجهم.
اللهم صل على محمد وعلى محمد وعجل فرجهم. That is the initial dua section of today's show over. Of course, inshallah, we will end with a dua as well if I can remember and if we have time, of course. But now that that's over, let's begin with a few details of our meeting today, why we're meeting today, the significance of our meeting and the significance of today's show. Now, I'm sure all of you are aware that we have passed and we are still passing, but we are in the final days of those sad days, which were those days wherein atrocities and agonies were inflicted upon the household of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So what we have now is a very short period of time. Of course, it doesn't seem that short if you think about it in terms of hours or in terms of days, but in terms of the whole year, for example, we have a very short amount of days left. And for that reason, before this short period of sadness, the end days of sadness are over, we have to really think about today, especially in today's meeting. I will help you think and I will try and reiterate the importance, but we have to think about what we have to gain from these days, what we can as Muslims, of course, as mu'mineen, gain from these pious days which we have gone through and now going through, and inshallah, if we make it, then afterwards have been gone through. So in the past tense, I don't know how you'd say it, but yeah. So for that reason, what we have to think about first and foremost is those personalities whose troubles and whose agonies were those points of sadness for us, that we commemorate their sadness within these few days and within this time period. And of course, in our previous shows, I have talked about the personalities of such as Hasnain, you know, Imam Hussain al-Islam, Sayyidah Zainab al-Kubra, Salamun alayha, Sayyidah Sakina, Salamun alayha. But today I would like to take special care and special mention and, you know, highlight the personality with the help of Hasnain, of course. Of that, Hasnain, if you want to tell everyone watching at home.
Imam Zain al-Abidin al-Islam.
Imam Zain al-Abidin al-Islam. And who is the father of Imam Zain al-Abidin al-Islam?
Imam Hussain al-Islam.
Imam Hussain al-Islam. So what Imam is he in number?
The third Imam.
Third Imam? The fourth Imam. The fourth Imam and the sixth infallible. So for that reason, inshallah, I will be talking more about not just his life, but more on his pious virtues, his worship of Allah Almighty, which is undoubtedly one of the greatest lessons he could have left for us as mu'mineen, and his examples that he set out not only whilst praying, but even whilst doing wuzu, which is of course ablution before you do namaz. I'm sure everyone knows that. And of course, we'll also be talking about, in general, the pious and high stature. This is more Hasnain's section for today's show of the Panjshnath Pak in general, in the form of a hadith and narrations of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Now, as I mentioned at the start of today's show, Imam Zain al-Abidin al-Islam was such a personality who suffered such atrocities in his lifetime that it is said that he did not smile for nearly his whole lifetime. He did not smile. He never, because of
about 46 years.
46 years, he did not smile because of the atrocities. Not only he suffered, but what he saw on the plains of Karbala. Now, what we have to learn from this, what we have to learn is, of course, the great sadness that was inflicted about our Imam should be commemorated and should be told and should be remembered. But also we should try and learn from it. And what we can learn from this is that even through all that agony, even through all that misery, Imam Zain al-Abidin al-Islam remained steadfast, remained patient, persevered with his holy imamate mission, which was preaching Islam. And this was a time which was really, this was the break or make point of Islam, which of course started at Karbala, and the martyrdom of Imam Hussain al-Islam really saved Islam. But even after that, spreading the message of Islam, upholding the virtues and values of Islam, and this is the true Islam, I should say, because of course a lot of people claim to be Muslims and yet they follow and repeat such actions which are nothing like the true mu'mineen should be doing. So the true Islam, those values of the true Islam and virtues of the true Islam were left on the shoulders of Imam Zain al-Abidin al-Islam, the Imam after Imam Hussain al-Islam, and of course Sayyidah Zainab al-Kubra salamullah alayha as well. But we've already covered quite a lot about her virtues in previous shows, so I'd like to focus more about Imam Zain al-Abidin al-Islam. Now, Hassan, I am sure that you have for us a few sayings of Imam Zain al-Abidin al-Islam. And of course, the best way to learn anything from anyone is by listening to what they have to say, reading their books, and in this case, of course, the greatest gift Imam Zain al-Abidin al-Islam gave to us as mu'mineen is Sahifa Sajjadiyah, a compilation of the greatest du'as that any mu'mineen can perform. But as a part of his sayings, which is of course any sayings of the Imams are the wisest words and the wisest forms of teaching for us as mu'mineen, what we can learn from them is now up to Hasnain to tell us those sayings. And if you want to say a few words on what we can learn from them, you're more than welcome to do so. So after a salawat, Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad wa ajil farjahum.
Imam Zain al-Abidin al-Islam said, "Refrain from lying in all things, big or small, in seriousness or in jest. For when one starts lying in petty matters, soon he will have the audacity to lie in important matters also. A man need not to fear Allah except on account of his own sins, and should place his hopes only with his Lord. When about something one does not know, one should not be ashamed of having to learn about it. And patience is to faith what the head is to the body. One who does not have patience also lacks faith." Salawat. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad wa ajil farjahum.
If you could just repeat, I know you've read them and I'm sure everyone at home must have understood, but for those who maybe weren't there for now or maybe want to listen to it again to learn and attain the most from it, I request you to repeat it one more time, even though you read it very beautifully. Just one more time. Thank you very much. Salawat.
Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad wa ajil farjahum. Imam Zain al-Abidin al-Islam said, "Refrain from lying in all things, big or small, in seriousness or in jest. For when one starts lying in petty matters, Soon he will have the audacity to lie in important matters too.
And anyone who maybe doesn't understand what the word audacity means, it's almost courage, you can say. We'll have the courage to lie, but for a bad thing, you can't really say courage, so that's why audacity is the word we used. So the audacity to do something bad is basically like the courage to do something good. Okay.
A man need not to fear Allah except on account of his own sins, and should place his hopes only with his Lord. When about something one does not know, one should not be ashamed of having to learn about it. This one, Imam Zain al-Abidin al-Islam is saying that if you don't know something, like for example, when you're in a classroom and you don't know what the teacher is saying, for example, like a sum, and then you have to ask, you have to learn it, so you have to know about it at the end, don't you?
Because for a lot of people, if you don't know someone, a lot of people feel ashamed to ask because they think, oh, if I say that, everyone will think I'm stupid, everyone will think I'm dumb, everyone will judge me. But what Imam Zain al-Abidin al-Islam is saying is that
when about something one does not know, one should not be ashamed of having to learn about it. And finally, patience is to faith what the head is to the body. One who does not have patience also lacks faith.
Of course, all these sayings, first of all, thank you very much. All these sayings have great importance and a great high value for us, so which we can learn from. Especially what I would like to highlight and what I would like to repeat over and over again in today's show, especially because of its significance concerning the hardships that Imam Zain al-Abidin al-Islam faced, and the lessons we have to learn from these final ending sad days and the days that have passed, is that patience is to the is to faith what head is to the body. One who lacks patience also lacks faith. So what Imam Zain al-Abidin al-Islam has done for us during his lifetime, not only has he set an example, not only is he an example of the high esteem and high regard of patience and the value of patience in day-to-day affairs, not only did he show such patience, but also he is saying, just to, finally clarify to the people the importance of patience. So what Imam Zain al-Abidin al-Islam is saying, patience is to faith what the head is to the body. So, for example, if you don't have a head, Shabi, obviously you would die.
You won't be able to.
You would die. You won't be able to do anything because you would die. You won't be able to do anything. So, likewise, if you do not have patience in your day-to-day activities, a true mu'min has to have patience. Otherwise, his faith, his iman will die. He will no longer be able to call himself a mu'min. And this is in fact a point that I was going to talk about later on in today's show, and in fact I'll just move it to the forward, move it to right now, since it relates very well to the saying, is that one of the greatest importance of patience is that without it we cannot have faith, as Imam Zain al-Abidin al-Islam told us in this saying, which Hasnan told us. And that is because patience is the most important virtue for any true believer, anyone who claims to be a mu'min. And why is that? Because if you think about it, religion, when we believe in Allah Almighty, when we say that we believe in Allah Almighty, and if someone questions your faith, if someone questions you and says, why do you believe in Him? Of course, they may think that they'll say that there is no evidence that you will go into heaven, there is no evidence that heaven exists, hell exists, so why do you believe in Him? There and then is a test of your patience, is a test of how steadfast you remain to your religion, to your iman. Nowadays, of course, a lot of people relate patience only to matters which involve anger. So if someone controls his anger, it is said that he is patient. But patience in another form is having the belief, the strength of your beliefs, the strength of your iman, to keep with your faith and stay with your faith until of course, the day you die, and that is because we are not certain of anything that is to come in the future. But we still have faith in Allah Almighty. We have the patience to believe in Him because we know that it is the correct path. Anyone who did not have patience would give up, would say, why should I believe, for example, astaghfirullah, but he would say, why should I believe when nothing good has come out of it for me? Maybe he's felt that some injustice has been done. For example, say if a very poor person is saying, I'm just saying, is starving in Africa, and he believes in Allah Almighty, and he says, why should I believe? He's never done anything good for me. He must have the patience to persevere through all those hardships and keep his belief and iman of Islam and the belief of Allah Almighty, so that in his hereafter he will gain his reward.
And you can get a blessing anytime. You can have a miracle. You can have
Exactly.
anything. You can suddenly have when you're there, then you suddenly find something, or suddenly have a job, and then you work, and then you get rich and stuff like that. So you should never ever
lose faith, basically.
Yeah.
And that's really sums up the Imam Zain al-Abidin alayhi salam's point on the importance of patience. Now, before we head on to a very short break, I would like to just mention one very quick last thing about the virtue of Imam Zain al-Abidin in Islam, and then when we come back we will continue with the virtue of Imam Zain al-Abidin in Islam, but in a different form, and of course that is the form of manqabat. Inshallah, I'll present that later on after the break, and also a few more virtues of his personality and the virtue of patience, especially on how we can attain patience in these last few days. Now, before we go, I'd just like to mention one saying of Imam Baqir alayhi salam, who said that whenever his respected father mentioned a bounty of Allah Almighty, he used to perform a prostration of thanks. Whenever he recited a verse of the Holy Quran, his condition used to be such that whether it be an obligatory prostration or a recommended one, he used to invariably perform it. When he got relief from a particular difficulty, he performed a prostration, a sajda, for those of you who may be wondering. He used to prostrate after the obligatory prayers. The signs of excessive prostration were apparent on his forehead. That is why he had earned the title of Sajjad. Imam Sajjad also, of course, is a very popular title, Imam Zain al-Abidin alayhi salam. And the meaning of the word Sajjad is the one who prostrates a lot, prostrates much. Due to such excess, 2 corns had formed on his forehead, like the knee of a camel. Such was his sincerity and humility that once there was a fire in the house. At that time he was in prostration. People began to shout, "Fire, fire!" but he did not raise his head from prostration. Finally, the fire was brought under control. Someone asked him, "You did not even notice that there was a fire. What made you so oblivious of everything?" And Imam Zain al-Abidin in Islam in reply to this, "The fire of the hereafter," said Imam Zain al-Abidin in Islam. So when questioned, when there was a fire in his house during namaz, he continued to pray. And when asked, I'll just repeat this because it's very great, that the message we can learn from this is very great. And when asked, "You were so oblivious to everything. What made you so oblivious to the fire in the house?" Imam Zain al-Abidin in Islam said, "The fire of the hereafter." Imam Zain al-Abidin in Islam knows that the suffering that we have to endure in this life is nothing compared to the suffering in the hereafter, and therefore we should always be thankful. No matter what we endure, no matter what hardship we endure, we should always remain patient and steadfast and thankful into the court of Allah Almighty. And a way of doing this, of course, is to stand in this as
prostration,
which is sajda,
yeah. And I would just like to add on to this, if there's another story which lots of people narrate, that when Imam Muhammad Baqir Islam was very small, he fell into a little river type, and Imam Sajjad al-Islam was offering namaz. He was in sajda as well, and Imam Sajjad al-Islam's wife said, "Oh my gosh, my son is in water and he's going to die." But Imam Sajjad al-Islam didn't go anywhere. He stayed there. And when he finished namaz, he came out, took Imam Muhammad Baqir Islam out of the water, and Muhammad Baqir Islam didn't have a single drop of water on him. That is how.
So that just shows the miracles and the pious and high stature of not only Imam Zain al-Abidin al-Islam, but all the Imams. Of course, Imam Baqir al-Islam, the Imam after Imam Sajjad al-Islam, and his son. So now I think this is a very pivotal and great point to take a break, so you can absorb all the information, absorb all the virtues and the pious and high stature of Imam Zain al-Abidin al-Islam, and think about for a while the value of the virtue of patience whilst we take a short break for a few minutes. Inshallah, when we return, we will talk more about this.
मुझे फितरत नवा पर पै बपै मजबूर करती है अभी महफिल में है शायद कोई दर्दाश ना बाकी दिलों